So, welcome back to the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast with Nick and Dom. I'm Nick. I'm about to introduce you to my mate Dom, and we're going to be talking about things in football that we think might be wrong, or at least talking points. This is episode 3, and we appreciate your support for episodes 1 and 2. If you haven't already viewed them, or downloaded them, or looked at them on YouTube, or listened to them, please feel free to do so. And don't forget to subscribe so you automatically get your currently your fortnightly fix of the Half and Half Scarf podcast. This week we're talking about the Americanisation of football and fit and proper. Now, we try and keep this podcast current. The Americanisation of football came about because of the abhorrent scenes at the FIFA World Club Cup final that just made it look like the Super Bowl, and it was lots of things wrong with that, which we're going to get into. And fit and proper just doesn't seem to go away with the continuous sad news of things like Sheffield Wednesday, Hull City, etc. So without further ado, welcome back, Dom, to the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast. Let's get into this, shall we?
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, looking forward to it. Really enjoyed the first two.
Okay, well, what we need to think about is letting people know who are watching this why the hell we're wearing the shirts that we're wearing. So you've got a fabulous looking Malmo shirt.
Beautiful shirt. It's a beautiful shirt. It's the 2016 shirt from the Swedish Alveskan. And the Swedish season is played in 1 year, April to November, due to the weather.
Yeah.
My wife is also Swedish, so that's our connection. We're Malmo supporters as well. So they're a really good, strong, big team in Sweden, and they often win the league.
Excellent. Well, I'm wearing a Dortmund shirt because in honour of the fact that this season I'm already starting to plan what will be our 8th trip, mine and Rob's 8th trip to Dortmund, and you're probably 4th or 5th, maybe 4th.
Yeah.
We go once a season over there to the Signal Iduna, and obviously wearing the colours. It's a great weekend. If you've not done it as a football fan, I'd definitely recommend that on your bucket list. There's about 1,000 English fans go to every home game out of a crowd of 85,000. We've been in every area of the stand, every area of the stadium, and there's no area that doesn't give you a fantastic atmosphere. But that's enough about the shirts. We try and keep it mixed up from episode to episode. But for background purposes, season ticket holder at Middlesbrough for a long time. That's myself. Dom's a season ticket holder at both Middlesbrough and Everton, but he's not a half and half scarf wearing football fan. We'll get that out the way as well, Dom, shall we?
Yes. Thank you, Nick.
Okay. It's not difficult to pick subjects for this podcast, certainly at the moment, because every week something pisses me off, to be fair. And the Americanisation of football, I didn't watch much at all of the FIFA World Club Championship. I didn't think it was, we talked about it in episode 1, I didn't think it was a valid tournament. I think there was all sorts of things wrong with it. But I did tune in to start to watch the final. Oh my God. Okay. I had it on in the background without watching it. And then the halftime show came on. There was cheerleaders, people getting introduced one by one to the crowd. Just an absolute abhorrent state of what soccer or football is turning into. What's your thoughts on, is it a slippery slope? Is it inevitable? Are you worried? Because it bothers the crap out of me, mate.
I'm not worried. I don't think things like that would ever happen in the UK. I don't. Not as far as they've gone in terms of what they did on that final. I say I'm not worried. I'm slightly concerned. You know how the powers that be in football are. I agree with you. Halftime shows, halftime being extended to half an hour, introducing players as they walk on, to a big fanfare, cheerleaders, the works. It's not NFL. They're fine to do that with NFL, basketball, whatever they want to do. That's their sports. They can do with it what they want. Mm-hmm. Football, they've kind of adopted football, and I'm glad that they have, and I'm glad that a lot of Americans love it and watch it and are following the sport and getting into it. But no, I'm an old-fashioned guy, Nick. I like it. I like its old-fashioned origins and what it stands for. I'm more a pie and a pint. I want to sit in my seat. I don't want hospitality. I want to sit with my mates. I want to see them beforehand for a quick chat. I want to watch the game uninterrupted. I want a pie and a pint at half time if I can. Watch the second half and go home, and well, chat to my mates and go home. I don't want to listen to singers and be introduced to my players one by one by their names on the back of their shirt and have fanfares and light shows, lightning, fire, all of those things. No, not
Are
for
you
me.
are you telling me you wouldn't ever sit with a foam finger on them, mate?
Quite like a foam finger. I wouldn't want someone in front of me, but I did actually buy Mia it's on one of her shelves upstairs. She has got a foam finger. There's a time and a place for it. It's a bit like, go on, mate. Sorry.
That time is when she was about 6, mate.
Six.
Tell me she wasn't any older than that when you bought her a foam finger.
No, she's never taken to a football match. It's just on her shelf. So it's that's where it belongs and that's where it should stay.
Good.
But no, I am a bit. I think if anyone wanted to suddenly start adopting that and extending half times and doing all those things, it's a nonsense. But I think does it open up another avenue on this in terms of Americanisation or perhaps globalization and trying to market football? On a slight tangent away from that, you've also got like in Spain, is it one of the finals? I can't remember which one they play. The Spanish Cup, they play in Dubai or somewhere like that. That to me is just absolute sacrilege. It's just you use the word abhorrent. I think that is terrible.
Yeah.
When you think you've got the fans of these clubs and they probably desperately want to go to a final, and then they're suddenly told, well, no, the final's in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Absolute. That's just crazy for me.
But you mentioned about globalization and taking the game, to the world. You're not telling me in 2025 the world doesn't know what the game of football is about. It hits every corner. You just got to see. I don't know whether you see a documentary or I watch Race Across the World quite regularly. I've seen all the episodes and series of that. And it could be in darkest rural Chile and there's somebody with a Ronaldo shirt on or, maybe even a Borussia Dortmund shirt or whatever. Football transcends borders. It's global already. I think what's happening with it's the pre-game and the middle of the game. It does bother me. It's already crept in because if you look at a couple of seasons ago when, more than a couple of seasons ago, Borough playing Aston Villa in the playoff semi-final, second leg at Villa Park. It's a great atmosphere in Villa Park, by the way. It's one of my favourite stadiums. When it's packed, it's rocking, it's great. We had a full away take-up for the game, obviously. We were 1-0 down from the home leg. And they had these big firebomb buckets before the game, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, the music was 1,000 decibels. I think it's the job of the fans to create the atmosphere. I don't think it should be created falsely by firebombs, rappers, music, a singer. It's just all just bollocks for me.
Well, I'm going to slightly disagree with you on a couple of small points, but then this is the beauty of what we're doing. We can't just agree on everything. I don't mind a good build-up song, something to really get you going. I agree with you. I'm a big believer that the fans need to put in. I think sometimes fans have forgotten the word support.
Yeah.
Support. They might be on hundreds of thousands of pounds a week and etc. But you're a supporter. Support. But sometimes fans need a buy-in. They need something to get behind. Everton fans, I think, are notorious for it. They really need a buy-in. They won't sometimes just willingly give it for nothing. And when we've been struggling the last few seasons, I think particularly before the season when we had the famous Crystal Palace game, they did start to build some things into their pre-match. So they'd have Fatboy Slim right here, right now. It was actually really good. It's steadily built. And they actually did have a few firebombs on the side. You can take or leave all that. I don't mind a good song. The fire stuff means nothing. As long as it kicks into your traditional coming out song and everyone's ready to go and the supporters are behind it, I'm fine with that. But I don't like all the live music and all the things that go with it and everything else and extending half times and things like that. I just think maybe it's with football, it just needs to be a strict adherence to the traditions of the game, which is bring the teams on, play your 45 minutes, have your 15 minutes interval, play your second half. That
Yeah.
goes against everything the Americans stand for, though, isn't it? Because they just want to make sure that it's a spectacle and they drag it out. And I think that's what, for me, that's what ruins a lot of NFL games. It's just get on with the game, for God's sake.
I don't know if you ever tried to watch a live NFL game. I'm a big NFL fan, but I'm a big NFL fan for the highlight shows. Watching a full game
Yes.
every year, Super Bowl, as you say, you get to half time. It's always a stupid time in the middle of the night for British fans, but I get to half time and you're thinking, well, I'll never get through this. You know, someone you don't care singing and dancing along, and on a temporary stage and stuff, and you fall asleep. You miss the second half because it's 40 minutes of sometimes, and
Yes.
just ridiculous. We'll disagree on the fire bombs. I sort of get the build-up song, but one build-up song, I'm okay with
Oh yeah,
that.
it doesn't have to be loads. Just one really good one that maybe just fires up and gets people in the mood to start
Yeah.
really roaring the team
Mm.
out. Yeah.
I don't know if you remember when the Premier League was launched with all the razzmatazz of that back in the 90s, 92, I think it was probably 90, 92, 93. They had cheerleaders, didn't they? Games, and Monday Night Football particularly was a kind of exciting, people coming in on helicopters and bloody parachutists and all that, but one or two of them got caught in the stands, didn't I remember that? But there's no place for cheerleaders in English football, none whatsoever, and we don't need them. They're distraction. They just get in the way. For me, they were kicked out after a number of weeks. Sky thought they could Americanize football in 1992, 93. But because of the likes of the World Cup being over there next year, because of the FIFA World Club Championship, because of the likes of your Donald Trumps, that Infantino's so far up his backside, he'll do anything he wants him to do. I am concerned that, next year's World Cup, for example, will be just a grind to watch because it won't be 90 minutes with a half-time interval. It'll be a 4-hour bloody festival of theatre, ballet, out of sync dancing. It's just wrong.
Well, that would be a worry to me and a concern. I think if they go down that route and they try and do that for all the matches, or if they try and perhaps start doing it from the last 16 onwards, we knockout stages onwards, maybe. Yeah, they could argue, well, it's in our country, we'll do it as we want. Personally, I disagree. I think just respect the rules of the simplicity of the game. It's not being miserable. It's not being a mardy arse in terms of not wanting to be happy or enjoy, the spectacle of the day. It's just a football match. It can be an important one. I'm not trying to belittle the game, but you don't need all the hoo-ha that goes with it. And I agree with you. What could happen from that is other countries might go, we'll do that when we do it because it works really well. I think the Americans also need to be mindful of when they did it in '94 and they were very kind of new into really starting to elevate the game over there. I mean, I know they played football over there for a long time. It's not trying to say they've suddenly started playing football, but they were really trying to properly invest and make it a sport that the kids wanted to play.
Yeah.
I thought they did it really well. And they respected the fact that they were trying to do it how it is done worldwide.
I'm not sure Diana Ross's penalty kick was classed as we did it really well.
No, but I think generally, I'm talking for Americans who do like to make everything a spectacle, and I'm not disrespecting America. That's fine.
Yeah.
I thought they were quite muted in terms of, and I think that's how they should play it. I agree with you. Now I keep forgetting that the World Cup's in America next year, and I think yes, that it could go off piste slightly.
Yeah. Off piste, a great word.
Yeah, and I think that's a concern because you don't want. Why bring in in? I think die-hard football fans don't want the unnecessary. You just don't want the noise. Why would you want the noise? You don't need it.
That comment this week, Jeremy Clarkson, I didn't even think was a big football fan, to be fair, but Jeremy Clarkson made a comment, didn't he, about the half-time show at the Chelsea final against PSG. And he said the half-time interval is for a pie and a pint and not for for someone dancing on a stage, 35 feet up in the air and whatever it might be. And the players must be sat there. The players don't look at all interested in any of the razzmatazz. They just want to come out and play football, don't they? So
Yeah,
Yeah,
all they want to do is play the game because they're focused on the game. They're not interested in any of that.
yeah,
Also, half time's about when when you actually go to the game, like we do, season ticket holders. And I'll say this and defend this till I die. When you actually go to the matches, you are much more invested.
mm,
It's much more than watching it on TV or watching a rerun or watching a live match because you are more invested when you go.
yeah,
When you've gone for a long time and you know the people around you and they become friends,
yeah,
for me, halftime is also about catching up with them and
yeah.
chatting. And that's a big part of my match day, pre-match, halftime, and post-match. And that's really important for me. It's a big social thing for me. I don't need the music and the entertainment. I just want to talk to my mates.
Well, we wouldn't be doing this now if we had halftime entertainment in Middlesbrough because we wouldn't be able to hear ourselves think, would we? We got chatting over the gap in the
Yeah,
sort of the stand. You sat on one side of the aisle, I was sat on the other, and we got chatting and we've been friends for what
just
10,
been
12 years or
10
something.
years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Exactly. That's the
yeah.
beauty of football, mate. And that's something I value about football more than anything. It's the
Mm.
friendships you build, and they mean a lot to me.
Yeah, well, something that sneaked in that I noticed at halftime. It's not just a halftime show. We can live with the fact that they think it's ballet or theatre or whatever it might be. But it's not exactly a working man's viewing, is it? When football was originally, I sound really old now, but football, was a working man and working woman's sport. Um, we're paying through the nose because I think they think it's theatre and ballet now, and their tickets are a lot more expensive than
Yeah,
football tickets, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah, I would agree. I'm like you. I'm 52 years old. I remember when it was still a working class sport with rundown stadiums and very simplistic ways of doing things. And it's now become very sophisticated and in some aspects or some elements of it quite elitist as well, which is a
Mm.
shame.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing wrong with trying to improve something and elevate it and make it better, but I think sometimes clubs do need to remember that a big part of their fan base and the people who pay to watch are normal, simple, hard-working people who aren't on vast sums of money.
But let's take Man United, for example, because they have sold some of their season tickets that traditionally people have sat in the season tickets because they know they can sell them to tourists, the half and half scarf wearing tourist football fans. They might want dancing and fire bombs or whatever it might be. So that's the worry I've got. It's like a creeping disease,
Yeah,
as more and more fans decide to go to lower league games or are priced out of going to their favourite sort of Premier League or Championship clubs. You're going to get these kind of tourist fans who will put up with whatever the Americanisation might look like because they don't know any different. But that's the concern. It's a creeping little sort of disease for me that I'd like to keep an eye on and make sure that we're not being, sold down the river when it comes to turning up season after next at your home game, Middlesbrough versus, God knows who, Birmingham City, and find suddenly we feel like we're in the NFL Super Bowl, because it's hit us without us seeing it coming, really.
yeah. I'd find it hard to see them putting that into the Championship and the Premier League. I don't think there's any place. I don't think any fans would want it, and I don't
Mm.
think there's enough going ad hoc fans who might want a big spectacle to warrant that. I also don't. I just don't think it fits football. I just think it just. I like the simplicity of what it is,
Yeah.
what its origins are, and I think it needs to stay at a certain level. I don't think it needs to become more and more and more sophisticated and elevated. Look how everything's going in terms of new stadiums, all the offerings within the stadiums. A
Mm.
lot of it is very corporate driven. I
Mm.
understand why we're now in a mad world of countries needing to own football clubs and the vast sums of money that players get paid, transfers, everything else. This is probably one for another pod, but I don't think it needs to be as complex as that. I think
Yeah.
you could simplify football very easily and make it quite cheap and still get a lot of advertising revenue without penalising the fans.
Well, one thing, if we're going to benefit from Americanisation, if they do bring it in by this back door, side door, or surreptitiously, is in America you can at least drink at your seat, can't you? So you
Yeah,
can have a beer. You can't afford a ticket, but if you do manage to get in and afford one, you can have a beer and at your seats really. So I would hope that if they do catches out with Americanisation, they give us some of the benefits of that. But I don't want a hot dog vendor standing in front of me while I'm trying to watch a bloody game, is what I'd say really on that one.
Yeah, I would agree. And yes, I'm all for having a beer in my seat. I love that. When we've been, going to Dortmund, going
Yeah,
to Malmo, going to other games abroad that I've seen, you're freely allowed to drink in your seat. The thing I don't like is in other countries I've been to, they let you smoke in your seat, and I hate
yeah,
that because I've
yeah,
been sat behind someone and it's just awful. So there's
yeah.
pros and cons of both.
Well, I would say at Dortmund, it's not that you're allowed to drink at your seat. It's compulsory that you
Oh,
have to.
yes, it is compulsory. When we were last there this season, the thing I admired the most was these guys, the four Irish guys who were sat next to us, and they came up before the game, and they had, I mean, God love Dortmund. They had those carriers where you can put 6 pints in. They were all coming up with 6 pints in their hands, and they'd managed to get through all of those in the first half without
Yeah,
going to the toilet, by the way. Then
yeah.
went back down half time, brought the same amount up. I haven't even been to the loo. That's some impressive stamina for you. But any club that makes you a stack of being able to put 6 pints in to carry back to your seat, they have my utmost admiration. Not that I would ever warrant doing that. If I had 6 pints during a half of football, I'd be fast asleep for the rest of the day,
Yeah,
sadly.
you would. Rob and I went to a German third division, so a regional game with Duisburg a couple of years ago when it was one of the trips that you couldn't make, and we just sat in the stand. It was a terrible game, but they had ultras, they had flags, and all that kind of thing. And that was genuine football fans. You're genuinely celebrating their clubs, and they had ultras at one end and ultras at the other. And they actively encouraged us. We just sat there, and they were bringing drinks round. We had a few, shall we say, watching this
Yeah,
German third division game on a sunny afternoon. It was an interesting watch. But I'm all for the Americanisation of drinking at your seat, but that's the only thing I'll let them do that won't spoil my mood. But the last thing I want to talk about before we get on to something else is, did you see the halftime interview with Cucurella as he came off the pitch?
oh, yeah, there's no place for that. Absolutely no. That's just nuts. I mean, I'm not a fan of this in the first place. When you have these pre-match with the players, and for example, watching the Lionesses, and they were interviewing Leah Williamson before the game against Sweden, and you could tell that she didn't want to be there to speak to the media. Her mind was on the game, and so it should be,
Yeah.
and she shouldn't have to come out and talk the usual talk. They're not saying anything that we really need to hear, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but it's almost like we need to speak to the players. And when they're walking off the pitch or coming back out, that's just crazy. It's like speaking to the managers at half time as well. Like, no.
Well, here's the thing with the halftime interview. Allegedly, they're going to be trying it on some of the televised Premier League games this season, which is
Oh,
a
no.
disaster, right? Now,
No.
couple of things. Mark Cucurella, English is his second language, so he speaks a lot better English than I'll ever speak Spanish, but it's his second language. He's been asked questions when he's just coming off a football pitch, having run around for 45 minutes, probably having his hair pulled a lot, to be fair. But he's been asked questions in a second language when he's out of breath. He wants to sit down, have a relax, maybe have a bit of a massage of his calves, get a drink, get some refreshment. Cameras thrust in his face, microphones thrust in his face. What insightful information is he going to give you? He's going to say, isn't he? Well, it's only half time. There's 45 minutes left. It's been a good half, or it's been a bad half. In their case, it's been a really good half. You're not going to say, oh, yeah, they were crap. We're going to smash them in the second half. Aren't we brilliant? There's no insights whatsoever. I get every interview this season, if they do it on the Premier League, is going to be exactly the same. It's been a good half. We've played well, but there's still 45 minutes to go.
I agree with you, but you could go further on that point and say, well, I mean, it's a terrible idea. It's not going to work at all, and it's disrespectful to the players who are trying to play a football match,
Hmm.
and they don't need that distraction. But do you not think that when they speak to players before and after a game, that even if they've won, lose or draw, and I'm not criticising the players here because I don't really think they need to come out and be all singing or dancing, but if you put a collection of post-match interviews with the players together from seasons gone by, would they not all just be saying the same thing?
Yeah.
Let's face it, it's fairly tripe and boring stuff, and I don't mean that against the players themselves, but What are they supposed to say?
Yeah.
What does it mean to you? How important was that third goal? How does this change how you're going to approach the rest of the season? Well, the first thing they'll always say is, well, it doesn't. We just take it match by match. And they all say the same thing, but they're so desperate to speak to the player. Just leave it alone. We don't
Yeah.
need to speak to the players. Not really.
You
Not
just
really.
you just lost 3-0 at your greatest rivals. It wasn't a great day for you. How do you feel? Oh yeah, I feel absolutely top of the world. You know what I mean? It's just going to be, well, we need to try harder. We'll look at ourselves in the mirror. We'll go into training tomorrow and we'll come back stronger. Good God, cut pace, cut pace, cut pace. Cut it out. Stop it. Just don't do it.
It's just cringeworthy. And I actually just think, whenever I watch them, and I know they've got a small window of time, but they still ask a fair few questions. For me, if you're going to do it, do better. Ask something interesting that a footballer might go, oh, actually, that's an interesting question. I might quite like to answer that. But no, I don't get it. And I don't, you can see managers get brassed off as well because they've got pre-match interviews, post-match interviews where they have to go into press rooms and answer all these banal questions.
Yeah.
I just think it's more about this world we live in now where it's almost, we have to keep talking. We have to keep talking endlessly about the game and what's going on.
Yeah.
Actually, we don't. We really don't.
Well, obviously, Borough have got a new management team. Rob Edwards is in place. People are saying he's saying a lot of the right things. Well, of course, he's, how do you feel about being at Middlesbrough? And I guarantee he could play buzzword bingo, really proud, massive club, can't wait, sleeping giant, I'm really proud, really honoured, great squad, all that. You're not going to come and go, well, actually, it's a bit of a shithole, is he? He's not going to come round and go, I'm actually surprised how bad the squad are, or, he's everything's just going to be just contrived traits. So when you stick a microphone on someone at half time, it's going to be even worse because they're looking at the camera going, can I just go? I just want to be away somewhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's going to be really awkward. Really awkward.
Yeah.
I just don't. What quality information are they going to get? They're not going to get anything.
No.
And they'll still try and ask several questions. So that's probably going to be 5 minutes of their half time when their manager might want to get some information across to them, and they've suddenly got to go in and join a half time meeting. If I was the manager, I'd probably be saying, no, this ain't happening. Just pure and simple.
Well, the good news was Cucurella had 40 minutes to wait because somebody was doing some dancing on the third floor up at the stage, in a half-time show. So he had plenty of time to recover. But we'll leave it at that because we want to get into a very serious subject. So Americanisation can go and do one by the back door or otherwise. Not a big fan. Leave it as it is. Football's for the people who respect the traditions. Even if the traditions are in a nice modern stadium, I don't mind that, but I don't want all the hullabaloo that goes with it. But let's talk about something really, really serious, okay? Fit and proper, because it never seems to go away, does it? Fit and proper. You just got to look in the news, social media, look at Sheffield Wednesday. And we said we weren't going to swear on this podcast, but it's a shit show, isn't it, Sheffield Wednesday? And the fans of a historic, big, respected club deserve better. And then Hull City apparently owe £20 million in unpaid transfer and loan fees to other clubs. And their ownership's only been in place like a season and a half. How does that get to that level and happen when we're supposed to have fit and proper governance in place for people who want to run football clubs? I fear for clubs like your Wednesdays, like your Hull Cities, both of whom are probably favourites for relegation, and both of whom don't deserve it because their fans deserve better. What are your thoughts on that as a starting point?
I would agree. I think added to that, and this goes back to when Bury went under, and Bury were appallingly managed and owned, and lots of clubs have had lots of problems over the years. But at the time when Bury were going through their problems, it was really heightened just how many clubs, even well-run clubs, are on the brink of going under anyway, just from the financial pressures at any given time. And these are well-run clubs. So imagine if you then throw in the mix of fit and proper and bringing in owners that shouldn't be running football clubs. Plus you've got clubs that are on the brink at the best of times anyway. It's a disastrous mix. And that's when you get what you've got with Sheffield Wednesday and Hull City. Because let's not kid on here. For a lot of these football clubs, it's fine margins. They're not
Mm.
making huge profits. Look at Middlesbrough. They don't sell out a match day every game,
No.
and they're. I know for a fact from speaking to people at the club, people I know linked to the club, that there's certain times where on certain match days, given the fans that have walked in the door, they've made a loss on match day.
Mm.
That should never happen, should it?
No.
But the fact that that does happen, they're having to compensate elsewhere. And
Yeah.
Middlesbrough is a very well-run football club, but I would imagine it still sails close to the wind. We won't fully know. I don't think you'll ever know within football clubs, but I think they'll come out and tell you it's always very fine margin stuff.
Mm.
So what is fit and proper? What is the governance? My issue, Nick, is I don't think anyone really clearly knows. And it's like anything, isn't it? If you're going to have people come into football to buy a football club, I think it should have some clearly defined, well communicated criteria and
Yeah.
governance and diligence, and everyone should know what that is. The
Yeah.
problem is no one seems to know what it is, and it changes all the time. And what the EFL will say is fit and proper. Well, okay, explain it to us then. What does it actually mean?
Mm.
I think it's a disgrace, personally. And the Sheffield Wednesday one, I think the owner probably comes across like he has good intentions, but he's clearly not capable of running a football club. The most important bit being there is financially.
Yeah.
He's not capable. So how can it be that you've got football players who aren't getting paid, staff that aren't getting paid?
Mm.
You're putting your football club in all kinds of peril in terms of, putting them into administration, the stress that comes with that. Linked to fit and proper is not just financially, but what's their understanding of how to properly run a football club and their understanding of football. For me, Hull City's ownership is chaotic, and I don't really think they actually understand what they're doing.
Mm.
Point in case being that why on earth would you sack Leroy? Is it Leroy Senior?
Liam Rosenior? Liam Rosenior. Yeah.
Sorry, Leroy is dad, I think. Great guy, talented coach, was doing really well at Hull, and you could tell he was really enjoying being the manager there and had a plan of what he wanted to do. And by mutual consent, he goes. And the Hull City only came out recently and said, "Oh, I have a really good relationship with Liam. We were just on a different page." It's like, well, how are you on a different page when he's done so well for you? Surely, if someone's doing that well with their players and building something and performing, why are you on a different page? Yeah. Surely it's about the football. I'd love to know what's gone on behind the scenes there as to why he suddenly walked out the door and doing really well in France. And then the thing that's come on afterwards is just a disaster. What's that about?
Well, he finished seventh, for God's sake, and Hull's ambition was to get into the playoffs. And on the last day of last season, they were flirting with relegation. So that plan's gone really well, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, prior to Birmingham's current owners, they were the same.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for. Sacking managers that, well, actually, Birmingham's current owners did it when they sacked John Eustace, didn't they?
Yeah.
When he was doing really well, and I think they've learned their lessons from that, and they've now gone back to, starting to pay attention and do what's right. But I think also you've got fit and proper also comes into even the owners who come in and then run the football clubs where they're not going through what Hull and Sheffield Wednesday are going through. How invested are they in the club?
Yeah.
Look, the Venkies at Blackburn, that's a terrible situation because they're not in it for the football.
Somebody said to me on a conversation about the Venkies that they've not set foot in Ewood Park for something like 8 years. Physically never been into the stadium that they own and run for 7 years. So what are they doing it for?
I don't know, and I think every Blackburn fan will have a view on it, and I think part of that view would be the same. They don't know how. Surely you have an owner of a football club because they want. Yes, I grasp the concept that they might want to make some money from it. It's a business. Football is a business now.
Yeah.
Let's face it. It's not just a pastime. It's a business. Yeah. But surely you've got to be in it because you love the sport, or you love football.
Well, let's look at two things there. One is that if they're in it to make money, they're in the wrong business because not many football clubs actually do make money.
Exactly.
And secondly, most of them are probably in it for a vanity project to say that I'm a chairman or an owner of a football club. Not all of them, but they come in from, the guy Hull's from a media background. I think he's the Turkish sort of Simon Cowell kind of thing. A bit of limelight, bit of look at me, I own a football club kind of scenario. Leeds over the years had quite a few chances in there, didn't they? We're just loving the limelight, but we're totally unable to run the club. And a few Italians, I can't remember the names of them, etc. Reading, God forbid, the guy who used to run and own Reading when the stadium was named after him, John, I can't remember his name now. He had the club at heart, didn't he? He loved it. And then when he sold that, he sold it to some chances who didn't get football, didn't understand football. I'm going to give some praise out to the two Hollywood guys who run Wrexham, because when they said they're going to buy Wrexham, everybody thought it was just some kind of joke, didn't they? They just thought it was like some kind of, oh yeah, TV documentary, you'll drop us like a stone. But they sat down with the supporters trust before they even bought it and were grilled by the supporters trust on what their ambitions were, how realistic they were, how invested they were. And what they've done, I know they've done it in a different way with documentaries and Hollywood and all that, but what they've done for the town of Wrexham and what they've done for the community and what they've done for the football club by being fit and proper
Yeah.
and stumping up the money, but they're not making money. They're losing money probably hand over fist like everybody else is, or sailing close to the wind. But at least if you're a Wrexham fan, you might have had some initial doubts, but those doubts have been dispelled. But there's lots and lots of people at Middlesbrough, when we don't spend money in the transfer window, like, oh no, Steve Gibson, get Steve Gibson out. My God, be careful what you wish for, because if Steve Gibson left Middlesbrough, God knows what we'd get. And who sat there waiting to buy a mid-table, small-town championship club with zillions of pounds? We're not in 97 when Steve Gibson would have been one of the richest three chairmen in the Premier League when we were buying Janino and Ravanelli. If we got promoted now, Steve Gibson would be a pauper by comparison. So just be careful what you wish for.
Well, you've raised some really good points there, which I'll respond to. Firstly, on the Wrexham point, excellent. Yes, they had to be grilled by the supporters trust because the supporters trust owned the club, and well, they didn't own the club actually; they were just invested in the club. The biggest thing that Reynolds and McElhenney have done is they've bought the club, and they've bought the ground, they secured the ground back again. That was the biggest risk at Wrexham because they didn't own the ground, and it was always in constant turmoil of what the owners were going to do with it. So they now fully own their ground. They own the club, and their turnover is actually quite astonishing because they've bagged some seriously big hitters in terms of advertising. But I think even they're going to find the step up quite hard because all of a sudden your wage level goes up significantly. They're investing heavily in the ground. So it's going to be, they're building their cop stand there and they're going to work around gradually. So it's going to be fantastic, which is brilliant because the racecourse ground is one of the oldest grounds in football. One of my mates is a Wrexham fan and he's been through the ringer watching his team. And I think it's lovely that they have got owners that have really instilled this belief and wanting to fill the ground again and fill it every week and do the right things by the club. And what a ride, by the way. On Middlesbrough, yes. Oh my God. He's a brilliant owner and chairman, and he's not going to get everything right. I'm sure if you were to talk to him, he'd probably come up to you and say, I own a football club. Of course I'm not going to get everything right. Some of it's gut, hunch, feeling when you meet people. Do I sack the manager at the right time? Do I not? Do I move on at the right time? Should I give him more time? How much money have I got to invest? All of those things. And to your another point about how rich he was back in the 90s, it's the same at Blackburn, isn't it? When Jack Walker owned the club and they won the league. People like that of his level of wealth could do that then. But they're almost considered paupers in the world of football now. And you almost sometimes wonder whether some of these owners who jumped on board 10 years ago were still of that ilk of thinking we can do something amazing here, then suddenly waking up to the reality that they can't.
Yeah.
I'm surprised with the banking because I'm not quite sure what the situation there is. I do look at it sometimes and think, well, why don't they just sell? And maybe it's not that easy to sell a football club and get a proper invest. I don't know, but they just seem their appetite for it doesn't seem like it's there at all.
But Blackburn's never mentioned as being up for sale, though, is it either? You
No,
know, it's not like you see it and go, well, they're obviously trying to get rid of it. Chansiri at Sheffield Wednesday is trying to get rid of it, but by all accounts, he wants a lot more on a valuation than it's actually worth. And it's a club that's in turmoil. It's a club that's got a transfer ban for 3 transfer windows. That's knocking value off every day, isn't it? You know, but it's at least it's for sale. Reading's for sale. We didn't mention them. You know, we could have a whole thing about Reading, but Hull's
Derby
not.
as well. Derby have had issues as well, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know many Derby fans, but I know they've had their problems and their issues and their struggles, and whether they're slowly trying to and start turning it around now in terms of how they're moving forward. It feels like they are. Derby fans out there, please come and correct me if I'm wrong, but they look like they're trying to rectify some wrongs and build for the future, bringing the right guy in, hopefully.
Can of Worms asking Derby fans to comment on a podcast run by 2 Middlesbrough fans, mate, because we're not popular on the basis that many of them mistakenly are blaming Steve Gibson for their woes, when actually you look at it was down to Mel Morris, their chairman. Fit and proper, no. Steve Gibson called them out. There's a view as to whether he should have done or he shouldn't have done and all that kind of thing. But the reality is they were breaking the rules. They were called out in it, and Mel Morris in the end was the culprit. But so Derby fans are probably a bit too passionate about, you know, the relationship with Middlesbrough, which is, it depends on what side of the coin you're on, but again, fit and proper, coming back from it. I like Derby. It's a great away day. I like the club. You know, okay, they nicked the blueprints for the Riverside Stadium when they built Pride Park, but we'll let them off with that. But the reality is, they deserve to be run properly. They deserve to be a community club. They deserve the fans to be not looking over the shoulder, worrying if they're going to get points deductions, relegation, that kind of thing.
That's what I mean. Yes, I do. I totally agree. I've seen a lot of vitriol from Derby fans towards Middlesbrough. You know, just keyboard warriors, social media idiots. I think it, like you said, if you do your homework properly and you really read up on someone, would you want to be associated with someone who's clearly broken the rules? If people knew Steve Gibson well or knew what his business integrity was, there's no way on earth someone like Steve Gibson would speak out and take legal action if there wasn't a wrongdoing. He wouldn't waste his time. I'm not speaking like that because I'm a Middlesbrough fan. I'd speak that even if I was a neutral.
Yeah.
The way people speak of him in the game, you know that he's righting a wrong. He wouldn't waste time taking legal action against someone if they hadn't done something fundamentally wrong. What Derby fans fail to realise as well is he did that for the benefit of the whole of the championship, not just Middlesbrough Football Club. And he was right to do so because Mel Morris was he was breaking the rules. Absolutely 100, and it was confirmed in court, wasn't it? So let's face it, Derby fans, there's no reason to get bitter with Middlesbrough fans. It's just a fact of what happened. You wouldn't want to be associated with that as a fan. I wouldn't at my club. I'd want him out.
And they'll be happier now that they've got him out and they've got somebody else in. And obviously, they went down to come back up, but, you know, they do seem on a better footing. And, you know, I personally wish them well because I do think they're a historic club and it's a great away day. So, you know, good luck to Derby on that one.
The struggles, you know, I'm the same with a lot of clubs. Aston Villa went through their struggles. Sunderland have gone through their struggles. You wouldn't wish that on constant purgatory on their fans. Good, honest football fans. I speak to a lot of them when I go, and they're good people. You wish them well. You want the best for them. Notts Forest as well, enjoying their time in the limelight. So they bloody should. They were 30 years in the Championship. Yeah, you know, it's good that good things happen to clubs because sometimes you might only have a few seasons of it. So as a fan, if that was me with my club, be like, I'm going to really enjoy this. I might get 1 or 2, 3 years, then it might go back again. I'm going to really enjoy it.
Excellent. Well, let's go back to FFP. It was financial fair play was replaced by profit and sustainability as a new kind of phrase, if you like. To me, it seems to have made absolutely no difference whatsoever. You know, there's still clubs who are sailing close to the wind of rules and regulations. Newcastle, you know, the richest kid in the world, locked out of the sweet shop, aren't they? But then Chelsea, Liverpool, City, you know, I've put down here, they're like the gremlins after midnight, seemingly doing what they want in the sweet shop, buying what they want, causing carnage. The rules don't seem to apply to the traditional big four. Why are Newcastle having to sell homegrown talent just to balance the books when they've got billions and billions of pounds at their disposal when other clubs are not? It just makes nonsense of profit and sustainability as far as I can see.
I agree. I don't actually understand it. I've been scratching my head a lot over this because, again, a bit like fit and proper, can someone please explain it to me? Because it's so convoluted and confusing that no one seems to really fully understand it. I'm sure someone somewhere could say, let's sit down and explain it to you really clearly and you'll understand. I'd love that, please, because that would be music to my ears. I agree with you. Look at some of these clubs who are spending huge amounts of money. Now, is that because it falls in line with what they're allowed to spend in terms of how much money they've made? Therefore, because of how much money they've made, they're allowed to spend X of it. That's probably how it works. So whether you go on, sorry.
I think that's at the heart of it. It's to do with, revenue created, revenue generated equals what you can spend, etc. But you're not telling me that a club like Newcastle are not generating plenty of revenue from shirt sales. They had their own documentary a while ago, TV rights, etc. Enough to be able to spend without getting rid of their homegrown talent, because they sell the homegrown talent because it's pure profit on the books, don't they? So if they sell someone, I think I saw the guy to Forest last year. They didn't want him to go to Forest last year. He had a great season playing for Forest last year. I can't remember his name. I apologise. But they might have got 40 million for him. It's 40 million pure profit. Then they have to go out and spend 38 of that 40 million on a replacement just because they haven't got the right. It's bloody madness, man. It's madness.
It is. And Longstaff's going to Leeds, isn't he? I think that's a similar ilk because it's homegrown talent and pure profit. I don't fully understand it, but equally, are you telling me that these clubs are making that much money that they can go out and spend 200 million? I mean, and Liverpool are a bad example because I think Liverpool are a really well run football club, and they don't go out and spend on loads and loads of players. They spend, I wouldn't say they spend frugally, but they spend sensibly in terms of, okay, we want these 1, 2 or 3 players, they'll go and get them. So they've spent like 200 million already.
Yeah.
They might go after 3, 4 players. They probably won't go after anyone in January, and then next season they might buy 1 or 2, depending on who they need to replace. But Man City,
hang on, in the same breath, a club like Man United, who've got a really shocking recruitment policy recently, will spend more than 200 million on 6 or 7 players, not the 3 players that they want or need. So I agree with you that Liverpool their transfer policy seems to be like a laser gun, doesn't it? We want that player. If we can't get him, we're not going to just replace him with 2 others that we don't want, Whereas Man United and other clubs, I can't get the one I want, so I'll buy 2 lesser players. I've now got a bloated squad, and I've got players who I can't get a game for. So they seem to be able to do that, don't they, Liverpool? Well, all of them do.
Well, they do it well. I was going to use Man United as an example. I mean, they're crippled debt-wise. So how on earth are they able to go out and spend 60 million on Cunha and then bid 75 million from Bueno and things like that? Where's that money coming from? I thought they were supposed to be broke and hemorrhaging money. This is what I don't know. This is the disconnect for me. I'm not saying they can't.
Yeah.
I want to understand how they can.
Yeah.
Also, and I know this is probably a grey area, and again, I don't know the full answers, but in January, Man City spent, 100 million quid or more on 3 players? And yet they're still awaiting their 116 charges.
Yeah.
How on earth do they feel confident enough they can go out and spend all that kind of money when all those charges are still facing them? And again, someone please, and this is why no one has any confidence in rules that are devised, particularly the Premier League. And being an Everton fan, I'm particularly sore about that because I think they use as an example to assert their so-called authority.
Yeah.
When they fined us and deducted the points that they did from us, and they did it so quickly, and determined to do it within the season that it was due and show their strength and things like that. I wouldn't go as far as because you never know a situation. I know a lot of our games they were holding up Premier League as corrupt cards. I didn't do that because I think unless you absolutely know for a fact that something is, you can't then say it.
No.
What I will say is there's things that are very wrong in these organisations of trying to prove a point.
You could hold a placard up saying the Premier League's unfair and no one would discount that, would they, at all? Because I think that,
how it applies its rules. And I just think, how has this taken so long? It's either because it is very complex and tricky, or it's because Man City have got the best lawyers in the world that are just delaying it and delaying it and delaying it.
But you do realise, just by raising this on this podcast, that Everton have now started the season on -3 points with a £2 million sort
Yeah,
of fine as a result of raising it, Tom. I'm sorry, but that's really how it works, to be fair.
yeah.
Quick couple of things to finish off with, really, in terms of it's all good now because we've got a new government regulator, haven't we? A new government regulator for football. Oh my God, right? Okay. People say they need one. Would you trust any government, any political party, they couldn't run a bath, let alone a football association or a Premier League or an EFL or whatever it might be. So what the hell are the government getting involved in this for? Because that can only make it worse, more bureaucratic and completely utterly useless.
Well, yeah, if it's government linked, absolutely. I mean, the government don't have a good record of trustworthiness at all. I wouldn't trust any politician as far as I can throw them.
No.
And there may be some good ones out there. So I'm sorry, anyone who, I'm sorry, anyone who is a good politician. I just don't trust any of them because I've never come across anyone that's done anything any good that I can see, which is sad, really. But from the areas I've lived in, nothing good's ever really happened. So,
yeah.
Yes, it shouldn't be government linked. It should be absolutely independent. It just should be a regulator that is like almost like a company in its own right that is there to purely regulate football. That doesn't have any link to government or any answer to government, but is there to actually regulate football or come back in terms for me and say, okay, these are the things that we need to improve and work on. Surely that can be a good thing in terms of it's a person as well, isn't it? Not just a series of people, it's a person. Well, how can that person looks to be well qualified and probably is very good at what they do, but can one person really do that? I'm not really sure they can.
Not when they're up against money, and that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, money and opposition from football clubs and all the barriers that will put up. So for me, it needs to be something that's strong and independent, that has enough clout and authority to be able to properly oversee and say, well, actually, maybe it's government in terms of certain laws that need to be passed that gives them rights to do and enforce certain things that football clubs then can't just, we're going to take legal action against you, Again, it's like anything, Nick, isn't it? It falls into a really grey area of what will it really achieve? Nobody knows. Is it a good idea? It could be.
Yeah.
Is it good that people are thinking about it? Yes. Because you don't want the Super League fiasco all over again, do you? I mean, that was just an embarrassment for all the clubs involved, particularly Spurs, by the way. Sorry, Spurs, but how they thought you were that big a club. Sorry, but that's just laughable.
How they got invited to something called Super.
In the first place to be involved in a Super League. I mean, it took me about an hour to get off the floor from that one, laughing. Just at the Spurs thing, but the whole thing in general was so disrespectful and abhorrent to football.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a good thing that it's being talked about, but how it's being positioned and how it's going to be implemented.
Yeah. Again,
I think we'd need to see the full criteria of all this. Why can't people just be? For me, it falls into open and honesty and full transparency.
Fit and proper.
But transparency means you need to be able to communicate what your fit and proper test is, what your governance is. All companies have to do it.
Yeah.
Financial companies have to do it. What's your governance?
Yeah.
So explain it to me, evidence it. I want to be able to go on there and see what your governance is, what your criteria is, what you're measuring, and how do you do that?
Yeah.
And the football clubs need to be able to sign up to that. It's some kind of football charter. They have to say, well, we're going to buy into all of these things and do it to make sure it is governed right. Until that happens, you're just going to hit a brick wall, aren't you? Like you said. Money and power.
Yeah.
And if people think that doesn't exist, they're lying.
Yeah. On that note, we'll leave it. But I do worry that in a year's time, we'll be sat here talking about something similar, and we were mentioning different clubs to Sheffield Wednesday and Hull and Reading and that kind of thing. But fingers crossed, not. Here's to a successful season for all 92 and the non-league teams, because these people are supported by communities and fans and people who it's their livelihood, their lifeblood. You know, if something happened to Middlesbrough, I don't know what I'd do with my Saturdays because you can't suddenly turn around and go and support somebody else, can you? You know, you just
No,
it's you
you
just.
could.
Have you met me? No chance.
I'm
Um,
joking. I'm
I
joking.
know you couldn't though, could you?
No, well, that's what I mean. It's like, well, you could. It's like that's what they kind of expect you to do. And it's like, well, you can't. Which is why it's great when these clubs come back from the ashes in another guy. They have to look at
Yeah,
Burnley. It was a fantastic football club with a brilliant community around it. That was
yeah,
just ripped to shreds because no one actually they didn't give a shit about the fans really.
no, exactly.
And it's all about the fans. Always is
Yeah,
about fans. We should always be reminded by COVID and the empty stadiums, no matter how big a team you are and how many amazing players you've got. Football
yeah,
without stadiums full of fans.
yeah,
Just
true.
respect fans. Always respect the fans.
So on that note, as an Evertonian as well as a Borough fan, are you putting an asterisk next to Liverpool's Premier League title? I'll leave that. We're not even going to answer that question. No, don't answer the question, Dom. This week we've alienated Spurs fans. Episode 1 we alienated Arsenal fans. Let's leave Liverpool fans to that. I think they won the title well deservedly, but a lot of people put an asterisk next week because there's no fans there. We're leaving it at that. Listen, thanks again, Dom, for today.
And
Thanks for
you,
this. Thanks for this session. That was the Americanisation of football and fit and proper. Next time in the half and half scarf, we're going to be talking about technology in football. And it's not just VAR. We talk about how technology can improve or not improve football. And just something that came up as a result of the sort of PSG success this year. I know they didn't quite win the final against Chelsea, but you know they had a sensational season in the Champions League without Galacticos. So I've put the question mark of Galacticos, are they all that? So on the next episode, Dom and I will be talking about that. So without further ado, Dom, thank you so much again. We'll catch up with you later and we'll
yeah,
see you on the next episode. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And as I said earlier, we've got a LinkedIn group called the Half and Half Scarf Football Podcast. If you're on LinkedIn, just search the name under your groups and we'll find you there and let you into what is an open group. So appreciate your support and we'll see you again in a few weeks' time. Thanks very much. Cheers.
yeah.